Moosin here. When it comes to rated battlegrounds, one of the leading determinants of your success is effective communication. No matter how high of a CR game you find yourself in, or the lowest of YOLOs, without it you are going to have a bad time. Which brings us to today's video on target calling. Now anyone and everyone who has RBG'd has witnessed the hunt for the rare and elusive target caller. And even when found, the results can be a mixed bag. In this video, I'm going to cover the importance of target calling, who can target call, the process of target calling, as well as adding some add-ons that can assist you in the endeavor. Now let's go ahead and let's get into it.
Get on the Demon Hunter. Get on the Demon Hunter. Everyone on the Demon Hunter. Everyone on the Demon Hunter. He's overextended in the building. Like,
Two people on
literally,
Demon Hunter, more people on Demon Hunter, two people on Demon Hunter, more people on Demon Hunter. Make sure you're looting the body. Make sure you're looting the body. We only have 2 people, 3 people on Demon Hunter. We need more people on Demon Hunter. So why is target calling important? And why does almost every warrior not want to do it? Well, the answer to the first question is creating pressure. Without pressure, you will not land kills, nor push objectives. Although miracles are known to happen, if the other team is more coordinated, it doesn't matter how big your burst is. Going back to the second question, target calling requires a lot of situational awareness. And I'll be honest, even on my warrior, sometimes all I want to do is zug-zug. Then I have to remind myself that I'm in here for the dub. This takes us to our second point, and that's who can target call. And spoiler, it can be anyone. Not necessarily the warrior, but literally anyone. Albeit the preference for target calling is melee, which is due to the fact that they have to physically be touching the target, let alone get to the target, to do damage. Whereas casters can just easily make a switch from a ranged position. But where I am going with this is that any TC is better than no TC, because without that focus, you have no pressure. And without that pressure, you are pushing a boulder up a mountain. Get on DH, 2 people on DH, 3 people on DH, more people on DH. Put them down, put them down, put them down. Close, close, close. Good body, good body. So, what does good target calling look like, and where do you start? Although I will go into strategies for effective target calling, just remember, like any skill, it's something that needs practiced and honed. So the best place to start is by picking a target. Any target. Although I would suggest it's one that you can hit. Generally speaking, your priority targets are healers, overextended DPS, rogues, or a specific DPS that needs to have their burst shut down. Although not necessarily in that order. Target calling is dynamic like that. Now, circling back, remember we want to generate pressure. Target calling creates that pressure by focusing the team to force the enemy to use defensive cooldowns. So, when you get a defensive, you as a target caller direct the team to the next priority target to repeat the process. This has you swapping back and forth between forcing the next defensive and putting pressure back on the person whose defensive has just dropped. Now, I promised you strategies, and we will get there shortly, but it's important to understand the goal of target calling and the general process, because bursting into a defensive, splitting DPS, and or tunneling will not put the enemy team in the graveyard. But what will put them in the graveyard is effective communication. And that brings us to the process of target calling. Let's get on the Paladin. We're on D Paladin. D Paladin. D Paladin is Greater Mortal. Alright, we got a bubble. That's great. Let's go ahead and get on the DH. We're on the DH. 2 people on DH. We need more people on DH. Great, another defensive. Let's switch back to the Paladin. We're on the Paladin. 2 people on the Paladin. 4. Great, great. Push, push, push. Push, push, push. You can go here. You can go. You can go. Great. Good body. Getting body. So let's go ahead and break it down. First portion. Speak loudly. No need to yell, but repeat yourself. Remember, you're trying to get everyone to get on the same target. Speaking of that target, the next part, identify it. If there's only one priest, say priest. Just kind of like what we have on the screen here. Or if there are more of the same class, try the first letter. For example, you could say B Paladin, although in some games you may find that they have two classes that start with the same letter. Then and only then should you identify the character by its name. Following this approach will allow your team to quickly identify and get on the same target as you to provide that pressure. Once you are on that target, start thinking about who might be the next most appropriate target if you haven't already. Because, depending on how quickly your team gets on target, you may get a defensive early, or even a kill if the enemy healers weren't able to switch as fast as your team. Now, if you are unable to get a defensive within 10 to 15 seconds, I suggest a switch anyways, as the enemy healers are going to be able to focus, and you are best rewarded for keeping them multitasking and swapping targets. Likewise, you don't want to switch too rapidly, as you will split your team's DPS or not allow some classes the time to ramp up their damage. Pretty simple, right? Group up, get a defensive, switch, and switch back. On paper, yes, but let's dig deeper. Going further into that switch, let your team know in advance. Give them that heads up to time their burst or ramp their damage. Look at it like a 1, 2, 3, go, or even simply telling them the next target. For example, in 3 seconds we will switch to the lock, or once we get the hunter's turtle, switch to the priest. Now, this doesn't mean if a rogue pops out, you wait 3 seconds, or you continue to put damage into a defensive for that time. Make the switch immediately. Yet, for the standard calls, keep that communication going, and it will keep your team focused and applying pressure. Honestly, the hardest part of target calling is learning class defensives. For example, Evoker's Obsidian Scales, Priest's Guardian Spirit, or Holy Paladin's Blessing of Sacrifice. There are indeed a lot, and it brings us to the last portion of the guide. I mean, wouldn't it be nice if you could download an add-on that gave you visual indicators? Well, aren't you in luck? Let's talk about 4 and highlight how they can bring the picture together. The 4 add-ons in question are going to be Battleground Enemies, Omnibar, Big Debuffs, and Gladiator Losa. Looking first at Battleground Enemies, BGE for short, it is a must for every RPG, even if you are not the target caller. Highlights include allowing you to target, keep track of, see trinket usage, and importantly, see what your team is targeting. The latter allowing you to see and redirect your team to the main target. Next up, we'll talk about Omnibar, which provides you a visual of what interrupts, offensive cooldowns, and defensive cooldowns are available or have been used. This allows you to be more precise in your calls. If you're not familiar with this add-on, I'd suggest setting the spells you see to the major defensives at first, as it can be overwhelming. Then as you grow more comfortable, you can add to what you track with a lot more custom ability. The third add-on I'll be covering is Big Debuffs, and it is a simple one. It displays important buffs and debuffs that will appear on portraits, nameplates, and also increase their size on your raid plates. This allows you to quickly identify when big offensives as well as defensives are used. Lastly, we have Gladiator Losa.
Second wind. Chaos
Light
foam.
divine favor. Flare.
Avenging
Embrace.
Crusader.
Freezing trap.
Sniper. Chaos bolt.
Which I'm only recommending to those who need audio cues, have limited defensive cooldown knowledge, or just learning defensives. I would recommend practicing with this add-on in Arena first, to become more familiar with defensive abilities and the like. Due to the quantity of spells going off in RPGs, it can lead this add-on to be more annoying than anything. Well, that's it, y'all. Target calling is very dynamic, yet at its core, it is very easy, and will become second nature just by practicing. You will also find it improves your skill set overall, as you zoom out to see the larger game dynamics centered around different team compositions. So if you are tired as I am at trying to find a good target caller, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe buttons so we can all spend less time in the LFG. Once again, this is Moosin, and together, let's make PvP less toxic.